What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today, we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to give you an overview of what to expect for this upcoming week, what might cause volatility in the stock price, go over some of the current data points, as well why I feel some big things might be coming in the foreseeable future. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So based on Friday, it did go up 1.31%, a little low for volume, so 29.6 million shares being traded. 54 is the average. The data points coming out for this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Those are the days that you'd really need to watch for. So on Tuesday, November the 14th, good old CPI is coming out. And then on Wednesday, there is PPI as well as retail sales. So three fairly big heavy hitters. And when it comes to CPI though, everyone and their dog is going to be watching that, especially based on what Powell recently said, how the Feds aren't necessarily happy on the level of inflation. Of course, the Feds typically use PCE rather than CPI, but still the market's going to look at CPI and kind of dictate whether the broader market is going to go up, down, sideways, or wherever else. So a lot of people are going to be watching that. So 2 points, or I guess 3 points to watch for. Specific to SoFi though, based on this news that came out on November the 7th, SoFi is going to be participating in some upcoming investor conferences. And we already do know historically, a lot of these fireside chats do work in SoFi's case to really rally investors. So the next one is going to be, so this week on Wednesday, November the 15th, that's going to be at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that's going to be with Chris Lapointe, who technically did just buy some shares alongside Anthony Noto. So he bought around 14,000 or 15,000 shares at a price of $6.69. As well, it is to note, it was transaction code P, meaning he, alongside, like I said, Anthony, did use their own physical money, so wasn't awarded any shares or whatever else. So definitely, I absolutely love seeing that. So I'm going to go over some of the data points before I talk on some bigger and better things potentially coming down the pipeline. Starting off with options. Based on Friday, $2.4 million in puts being purchased versus 4.2 in calls. So of course, analyzing that information, people are optimistic about the foreseeable future. Looking at the calls for the open interest shows all the strike prices, expiry dates. Based on this information, it is anticipated to kind of land between the $7 and $8 range. So I'm going to tie that all in with technicals in a second. But looking at the puts, it is anticipated to be sub $6. So clearly the 58,000 in open interest is anticipating that the CPI most likely is going to go horribly wrong. And plus, on a side note, there's a lot of Fed speakers throughout the week that could in among itself cause a lot of volatility. But again, no matter what, as I've said in the past, options activity does not move the stock price. It is just merely a sentiment, but I like to use that as a benchmark. Similarly, shorts. I like to use this information as a benchmark, even though I don't see SoFi being a squeeze play whatsoever. So based on Friday, shorts did increase roughly around 467,000 shares. 13.78% of the free floats being shorted, 117.47 million shares overall are being shorted, and cost to borrow average is 0.81%. So you kind of don't see that manipulation. Obviously, I've pointed that out in the past, where cost to borrow average, or the minimum, has been in fact negative, meaning there's brokers out there that was physically paying people to short SoFi. So kind of interesting when it comes down to that. But as well, if you analyze this information, shorts increasing when SoFi landed green shows that they don't feel that it's justified. So you kind of have conflicting information. So the options activity, very bullish. Then you have this information, not necessarily that good. But as far as technicals, so I'm going to talk on the technicals before I loop it all together with what I do feel is probably one of the biggest things to dictate a trend with SoFi. So with it at $6.94, it is as it stands between this S1 and the pivot. It did briefly break below this S1 on Friday, but still $6.87 is going to be that next strong support, and $7.65 is going to be the next strong resistance. So a very wide gap, so you have to anticipate that there's going to be a lot of volatility, but I do feel that the broader market does want some reason to go up. And of course, maybe that CPI data coming out on Tuesday could be that X factor to cause SoFi to trend up. from here. And even if we kind of zoom out a little bit looking at the actual chart, it is lower percentile of the Bollinger Band and as well below a lot of the key pivotal moving averages. And looking at the momentum indicator shows number of retail investors were getting in on Friday and have been slowly, looks like since about the 30th, so October the 30th. Looking at stochastic though, it is neutral, so at 31, but there is a bearish sentiment overall with that, so it does show red line above the black, so not necessarily the best when it comes to that. So overall, like I said, just to give you a summary, technical is kind of neutral, but I do feel bigger and bigger things are coming. So there's some optimism. Of course, all will come down onto CPI, options activity, kind of bullish, and shorts negative, of course. So when it comes down to one data point that I just wanted to share with you, it largely is to do with this. So data-driven investing kind of pointed this out essentially on how usually in the past and historically, Anthony Noto does buy in bursts. So not usually just one separate transaction such as what he did do. He likes to buy in multiple different times, as what you can kind of see right here. And plus, if you kind of zoom out and kind of take this information, plot it on a chart, so through Ortex, it does show all the insiders buying. And if you kind of look at this chart right here, as you can see, typically, especially for the greater part of 2022 and obviously 2023, Anthony and other insiders always typically buy at the bottom. As you can kind of see, a lot of kind of grouping right here, right down here, selling at the top. So I think this is what caused a lot of fear when it comes down to SoFi with some of those recent insiders selling. But with Anthony and Chris buying, I feel like this is one of the best indicators. So no matter what I've kind of talked on in this video, like this seems to be one of the most credible pieces of like data that is very valid. My own opinion, of course. And once again, Anthony might not buy anymore. He might, we're just kind of stuck in limbo when it comes down to that and just speculating. But looking at this data right here, it does signal that there might be a fairly substantial rally, as you can kind of see what typically does happen after a lot of buying. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think that, on the side note, Anthony is going to buy more? Or do you think that it was just more of a one-off just to help the sentiment? Because obviously he did buy when things were getting very, very bad. And just kind of zooming out, when it comes down to the technicals, do you think it is going to kind of break this S1 and kind of trade within this range? Or do you think it's going to go back to the sevens? What's your viewpoint? I actually am very optimistic about SoFi, so I do feel that the sevens is going to be coming sooner rather than later and actually fully stay there. Especially, like, I don't know at this stage, like so many amazing earnings have come out time and time again, but yet SoFi stock just gets completely slammed. So I do feel like I've indicated in the past that once the market does enter into its expansionary stage, stocks such as SoFi that have proven themselves through their earnings and that is on the verge of profitability is just going to skyrocket like crazy. So let me know your thoughts on all that. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. Give yourself a shout out. Have you been buying over the last little bit? Have you been selling? What have you been doing with SoFi? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up like I said. And plus, one final thing, if you do like my channel, want to support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, I appreciate all you watching.